Hey guys, Tyler here with the Kingdoms trading card game, and thank you so much for clicking on this video. This is video number 5 of my 12 days of Christmas YouTube uploads. Now, if you're anything like me and you've made your own trading card game, you probably have this desire to make other games as well. Well, I have a whole slew of different games that I want to make. Some I've made some good progress on, some I haven't. And for 2023, my personal goal is to actually follow through on making one of these games. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in, and I'm going to show you all these different games that I want to make. So the first game that I want to make is called Stickleventure. Stickleventure will be a stick person RPG deck builder. Essentially the idea that I have is that you would buy a starter deck or a starter box, and your starter box would be enough for you and a couple other people to play, and it would sort of be my take on D&D. There'd be heroes, there'd be villains, there'd be items and buildings and locations and different maps and different themes. And my one thought with this is that you would have a good deck and a bad deck. So while you're trying to score points yourself with your good deck, where you would have your hero cards and your item cards, you would also have your bad deck that you're using to stop your opponent that you're playing against by putting different villains and other bad monsters or guys in different cities or locations. And also too, if multiple versions of this game came out, each box that would come out would be standalone games that you could play, or you could combine the maps to have bigger ones. So the first game is called Stickleventure. The second game that I have is called Make Your Mark. And by the way, I have these nice glossy things of paper, sheets of paper. I really like nice art and craft supplies. And so any ideas that I get for a game, I just write on this big paper so I can brainstorm everything out. And that'd be a tip for you if you're trying to make your own game, do something like this. Anyways, Make Your Mark is my take on a Catan or Monopoly or the Game of Life, something along those lines where you're trying to capture territories, you're trying to expand your influence. And the idea of Make Your Mark is that you are this young influencer that has been hired by a company, and your goal is to make your mark around the world. And so you travel all around the world spending influence points, and you're gaining missions and things that you have to do, and be a fun, lighthearted game. I do have some like art concepts for it where you know, all the major places around the world would kind of have their own tab. You know, so New York, USA is the Statue of Liberty. And so that would be my idea for that. I also had this idea, I think I haven't drawn it on the back for this, but you'd have different like plane ticket cards and things of that nature. So that is the next game, and this is the one that I'm contemplating on following all the way through, though this one would take a lot of work. This one is called Make Your Mark. The third game in the lineup is, I don't have a name for it, so I'll just say Spaceship Game. Now the idea, I'll do a zoom up, but I'll be having some B-roll while I'm talking, is there's going to be different types of ships. This is definitely drawing from the influence of primarily Star Wars, but also the game of Star Realms, which I really enjoy. And there'd be different ships that you would have, and for example, like this ship is called the grain top because of this light grain texture or this light grain color, but there'd be different versions of the grain top. You could have the grain top F or the grain top FE. And the idea of this is that it would be a military economic trading card, control territories type game. Definitely would be like a game mat that you would play on, and you would just have these different ships that you're trying to transport resources and also attack each other with. And so that is my take on a spaceship game. Game number 4, I was going to call Stick Wars, or I'm going to put it below Left to Right. Now I actually came up with this game at a wedding for someone that I was in a bridal party for. It was the day of the wedding, and all of us guys were ready, and we had hours to do nothing, so we made a game up with a deck of cards. And the idea, and I would probably make something different, but the idea when we originally played the game is everyone would be dealt a hand of cards, and you essentially have 40 health points for your left side and your right side. And then red was your attack and black was your defense, and we would all choose which cards we wanted to put to the left and which cards we wanted to put to the right. And then we would all lay our hands down, and then we would do the math to see, okay, how much damage did I take, or did I just stop all the damage that I took? And so this would be my own take on this. I was thinking about doing some Stick Wars type deal, but I kind of wanted to simplify it and maybe just use simple colors to make it more of an appealing game to non-nerdy gamers. And that's one of my goals with some of the games that I want to make. I want to make games that non-nerdy people are into. Maybe they're not into like the, you know, spaceships or the medieval warfare, but they're just into maybe simple point, you know, keeping games. So that is my idea for left to right. And I think this might be one that I would like to try to follow through with, because I think it could be a little bit easier, especially artistically. It'd be very simple to design. The next game, and this one would take a lot of work. This one I really do like a lot, but there's just a lot to flesh out. And this would be some type of war game. Now this war game would be very in-depth. It would utilize a couple different dice. There'd be 9 different stats per cards, and I think I might try to rip off the kingdoms from the Kingdoms TCG to use for this game. But essentially, each box that you would buy would come with different armies that have different dice with different indicators on it. Almost like the game Warriors, how different dice have different numbers on them, even though they all represent the same card. It'd be kind of the same for this. And there'd be different unit types in this. There'd be cavalry, archers, spears, sword, axe, siege, maybe even wizards or something like that. And you would have special combat moves that you could do, and essentially it would just be a war game, and you're trying to achieve a certain number of points or destroy your opponent's army, whichever one happens first. There'd be certain ways to attack and certain values, your army health, and I actually have some ideas for what maybe the cards would look like. So for example, like your army cards would look like this. So there'd be essentially an army card that's associated with each dice, and then that would kind of be your stats. Depending on the army size would be this like style of drawing. And I actually got this concept from a game I used to play on the PlayStation 2 a long time ago. Here's some more concepts for what the army cards could look like. Essentially, your army deck would consist of dice, your army cards with the dice that represents them, and then your big army card that's two-faced, one with a main artwork and some lore, and then the other side would kind of be like your strategy card, where you can spend strategy points to do certain moves or other things of that nature. Here's some more laying out. And I know I've talked about my little notebook a lot, but when it comes to game creation, I'm actually starting to shift to just simply putting everything on these big sheets of paper. And I actually kind of want to get away from putting all my games in this notepad, because I like keeping this one for Kingdoms exclusively, because stuff starts to get all over the place. And that's something that I'll talk about in another video about making a game, is keeping your stuff organized in one place. And when you're trying to make a lot of games, it can be a little confusing. The next game that I want to make is a sports betting game. And I have some really cool ideas for this. The one thing that's holding me up is how the actual betting component works, because actual sports betting, though I don't bet, I have asked some people that do sports bet, and it just, to put it in a board game but make it fun and appealing and easily accessible to people, I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind around. But essentially there'd be a pre-made bracket, and this would be around the theme of basketball, the NCAA March Madness tournament. And there'd be fun turn names, there'd be dice that you'd roll for the score, and essentially you'd have to bet before certain parts of the game happen. So the over/under, who's gonna win, or something along those lines. And the bet would be determined by the sportsbook cards, and so you would draw a card before you roll for each game, because each game would be predetermined, and then each person would place a bet, and the game is decided when all games have been played on this bracket. Whoever has the most money at the end of the game would win. I should mention, like, it would be kind of fun. Some of the team names we call the Bad Ballers, the Super Shooters, the Lazy Losers. So it'd be kind of that fun theme. The next game I have is called, I don't really have a name, so I'll just say Warbox. I wanted to come up with a war game that had a nerdy theme to it that could be played in maybe 15 to 20 minutes, and all you need is a box to play. Now these cards would be micro size, so they wouldn't be your traditional trading card game size. They would be 1x2 or 1x1.5. I forget what size the Game Crafter has on their website. But essentially the way this game would work is that you would choose your army type. So there would be army types. There would maybe be goblins, elves, robots, or things of that nature. And different unit types within those armies would have different colored dice. And the different colored dice essentially work in like a rock, paper, scissors type deal. Or I did write some stuff down elsewhere, or maybe one colored dice is a little bit more powerful than the other. And the idea is that you would take your armies, you would set them in stacks, and then you would just take turns choosing from the top of the stack which stack of your opponents to attack, and then depending on the dice you could roll, and you're just trying to eliminate each other's armies. I still have to work out some kinks in it, but overall the artwork would be rather easy because, for example, an army could have 3 different types. So all I would need to do is draw 3 pictures, but then there might be 20 cards for that total army, if that makes sense. And so you can see, for example, I have, maybe a different unit types and a different dice color. And then like I said, you would stack the cards like that. So again, I'm just trying to figure out how exactly that would work in terms of, if you lose a row, how does that work? Or do you have to attack from one row to another row? Just trying to figure that out. Or maybe there's like certain attack style cards. So all stuff I'm trying to figure out. The next game is called NFL Playbook. I haven't worked on this one a lot lately. But the idea of this is that you would have different football player cards. So you would kind of do a draft. And so essentially what that would mean is that you and your opponent that you're playing against would have this deck of players, and you would take turns drafting players for the game. Then you would have different plays that you're trying to play. You would have your offensive cards and your defensive cards with different colored zones, if you can see that. And essentially you would have maybe 4 turns to try to score a touchdown, or get a turnover if you're playing defense. And essentially you would just play maybe 4 or 5 rounds total to see who could score the most points. And so you would have different players that offer you different abilities or perks. At first, when I was thinking about this, and I have a tendency when I'm making a game, how in depth can I make this? And sometimes the simpler, the better. So at first I was getting pretty in depth with this game, but I think I'm gonna try to dial it back just a little bit. So that is NFL Playbook. The last game I have for you, and I think I've said this about 2 or 3 games, that this is the game that I wanna see through this year, but I think this is truly the one that I wanna see through this year. This game will be called Crazy Farmers. Now, Crazy Farmers will be a game that I kind of want it to be similar to the game of Speed, or maybe even, man, I'm drawing a blank. If I think of the game, I'll maybe put it up on the screen. I think it's called Pit, but basically those fast-paced, chaotic games. And the idea of this is that you have to build a sequence of cards that go in the correct sequence to essentially win that round. And the different types of cards in the game, you would have your farmer card, your tractor card, your building card, your crop card, your animal card, and essentially, like I said, you're trying to build the sequence, and once you get the correct sequence. I have thought though, like there maybe be an ability to pause the game so that way you can maybe go to the market to buy a card to put in your hand, or so some stuff that I'm trying to figure out, but I think it'd be a really fun game to just play with the family. And that's my goal this year, or for 2023, is definitely to make a game that family members would want to play, and that you don't necessarily need to be nerdy or in trading card games to play. So I'm curious, drop in the comments below what of those games sound most interesting to you. And I think what I might do is I might kind of catalog, if that's the right word, or at least do occasional videos showing you the progression of me working on these other games on this Kingdoms channel. I think that'd be kind of fun. And maybe, I don't know, next year release a game. So that'd be pretty cool. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to the channel. If you haven't already, I hope you've been enjoying these 12 days of Christmas videos. I put a lot of work into these. I do want to end this with a Bible talk, and in the book of Ecclesiastes, it is talking about all these things that we can gain in this world and how God gives us the ability to gain all those things. But at the end of the day, it all proves to be worthless, and the only thing worth doing is serving God. And so that is something that I even asked myself while I'm making my trading card game is this even worth it? Am I wasting my time? Now I have to be careful because I do believe God has given me my skills and abilities to do this for fun, for pleasure, because I do think that's a good thing. But I do have to ask myself, how can I use this to glorify God? And so I think for me, when it comes to this, I need to be careful not to be so attached to my trading card game that if something happens, I'm defeated, or my identity or my worth is in that. Rather, okay, I can use this game to get people to be together, to have just to be friends and to hang out. Or I can maybe even use it to upload videos, and maybe at the end of these videos talk about Jesus. And so I want to challenge all of us. One, read the book of Ecclesiastes. I really enjoy the book. I've read it through a couple times. But I also want to challenge you, if you have something that you're really into, maybe do a heart check. Ask God, am I into this too much? Or God, thank you for this, but how can I make sure that I'm not forgetting what my primary purpose is, and maybe how can I use this to glorify you or bring other people closer to you? Like I said, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Anything that I want you to know about will be in the description box below, and stay tuned for tomorrow's video. Whatever time of the day that you're watching this video, whether it be the morning, evening, or night, thanks so much for watching.